God puts us in nations, in places, not by mistake, but to do a job. What if we opened our eyes to the needs of our colleagues, of our leaders, of our subordinates, and we were a priest on their behalf?
My name is Brett Johnson.
I'm Lynn Johnson.
And we'd like to welcome you to the Repurposing Business podcast that will be coming to you each week.
Welcome to Season 6, How to Work Like God in 31 Ways.
Work Like God in 31 Ways, way number 25. Reform work and work to reform. Reform work and work to reform. Years ago, a good friend, Comfort Serfontein, went from South Africa to Indonesia to work on the tax system of the government because he's a tax specialist. And the issue was that there were relatively few taxpayers in the country, and the system was fraught with all sorts of malpractice. One of the issues had to do with bribes and corruption. So you might get levied an unfair tax assessment, and to make the assessment go away, you pay a lesser amount, and along with that, a bribe. And so that's the way the system worked. How do you bring transparency to a system like that? Comfort designed a call center. And the idea was that people could call up with a query. How do I handle this? How do I do that? Because the calls were recorded and there was no face-to-face in-person interaction, the system could be changed. And there was a miraculous result coming out of that. And so he worked to reform a system for an entire nation. And the results were astounding in terms of the number of taxpayers, cases resolved, and so forth. There's much more to that story, which is in my book, Extraordinary, which you can find at x-ordinary.com. Now, when God pulled the nation of Israel out of Egypt, he extracted them from Egypt. But there was a process that went on to get Egypt out of them. And that was the reforming of the nation. They'd spent 400 years in a foreign nation. What happens when you spend 400 years in another country? Well, you become like the people in the country in terms of your religious practices, cultural thinking. And so they were Jews in name, but they had a long way to go to become the people that God wanted them to become. We purchased a house in Tennessee, and when you're looking at buying a house, you see it with the lipstick on and everything looks great, and you think this looks good. And then when you actually buy it, you realize, man, there's a lot of things that have to be fixed. And that's what happened with us. So when we arrived here at the house, Lynn was in tears. And I woke up the next morning with a phrase in my mind. There's a difference between seeing the land and taking the land. And I realized there were 4 phases. One is you see the land and you want to see all the possibilities. Secondly, you purchase it. When you write the check and you send the money, that's a bit more painful. Then you have to go in and evaluate everything that's going on. And you have to then come up with a to-do list, everything that has to be fixed. And at this point, you need to be not rosy in your outlook, but you have to be really practical. And then finally, you occupy. When you move in, take out the tea kettle or the coffee machine, and you actually occupy. Same thing when it comes to work that reforms. It's one thing to get extracted out of a bad work practice or situation, and another to get reformed, and then God deploys us. So it's a multi-stage process. Being reformed and reforming is getting something back to its original design. So the theme echoes again. How did God design things? And then how do we get things back to their original design? I have some friends working in a nation who believe that the trading floors in their industry have been defiled and been corrupted. And it's their aim and ambition to set up a new standard, a new best practice for the industry, so that the historical bad practices, the defiled trading floors, can be fixed. Now, this has echoes of what we experience at the personal level in our lives. We understand from Romans chapter 12 that we shouldn't be conformed to the world, but should be transformed by the renewal of our minds. I like the Passion Translation. Stop imitating the ideals and opinions of the culture around you, but be inwardly transformed by the Holy Spirit through a total reformation of how you think. So our work should change the way we think and change the way that others think. So here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing you can do for Him. Don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit into it without even thinking. Instead, fix your attention on God. You'll be changed from the inside out. Readily recognize what He wants from you and quickly respond to it. Unlike the culture around you, always dragging you down to its level of immaturity, God brings the best out of you, develops well-formed maturity in you. This is Romans 12:1 and 2 from the Message. At a corporate level, there's a rediscovering of things, and it's our job as individuals and at the corporate level and also at the societal level to be involved in work that reforms. Reformed people reform systems that transform nations. I'll see you tomorrow.